Okay. Hi, Dan.
Start our interview.
It's a pleasure to have you here with us. It's your third time in Portugal.
Yes.
And did you enjoy every single time?
Every single time. It's a wonderful place to come,
Even when it's raining?
even when it's raining.
Well, my apologies for my voice. It's not as pristine and clean as your amplifiers. But if you don't understand what I say, I'll repeat the question. I've been following your career for ages, since Ricardo introduced us in London in 84, 85 at the Pent Hotel.
Yes.
There was a hi-fi show,
Right.
and he introduced me. After that, we met in Vegas almost every year, Frankfurt, Munich,
Yes.
San Francisco.
Sure.
Let's talk about your beginnings, let's say. You have an Italian name, so
Yes.
is your family of Italian origin?
Yes. Both my mother and father and their extended families are all from Italy.
All from Italy. And was your father also into hi-fi? Or?
Yeah, my father was kind of an audiophile of the time. He was a tool and die maker, machinist of sort, and he was really interested in music. And I remember clearly when stereo records came out, he was very intrigued and decided to build a stereo system. In those days, it wasn't just simple. It wasn't simple to have stereo. And he bought the components from a place called Lafayette Radio in the United States, and they had some not very expensive vacuum tube equipment because everything was vacuum tube back then.
Yeah.
And he bought a pair of speakers, and I remember him playing stereo records for a while. It was I can't remember the name of the turntable. Boy,
A leak.
it was a I can't. It was a single play turntable with a tone arm, but it might have been one of the generic ones that that company was making.
Yes.
So I don't know. I can't really remember the name of that. But he didn't like the performance of the speaker. He didn't feel that he got the kind of sound he
What
liked.
he was looking for.
Yeah. So he bought he bought a Klipschorn blueprint, and he had somebody make the boxes for clipped corner horns, a friend of his, and he bought the kit. So they would sell you the horns, and the crossover, and you'd put them in the box that you made to their dimensions. And he put them together. And we had a room probably not much bigger than this, and he put them in the corners, and he had his amp fired up. And then he got the sound he liked. He really played that a lot.
With high sensitivity loudspeaker.
Well, I think the amplifier was only 20 or 30 watts. That was good size for a tube amp back then. And he played that, and he played it all the time. Every time he came home from work, he would start playing music. And we played music all weekend, and he had all different kinds of music, and my family would come and they'd listen. And they'd talk about the old times that they had listening to some of those tunes and where they were. So that really got me interested in music.
So your father inspired you.
Yes, he did.
And you got your degree in engineering
Yes. In Berkeley.
in Berkeley,
Yeah.
California,
Yeah.
University of California.
Yeah.
I think you also went to the Navy?
Yeah, the Navy was instrumental in getting me my degree.
So you took your degree at the same time as you were in the Navy? Or-
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I see. Yes. What about tube amplifiers? Did you ever think of building one?
You know, you say that, that's funny. I did build a tube amplifier when I was 14 years old. I got I used to read Wireless World,
Yep.
and it was something I read all the time.
I did too.
My electric shop teacher was an engineer, and I read this article about this new Williamson push-pull tube amp. And I brought the article into him, and he said, "Oh," he said, "this is very interesting." He started explaining to me how tubes worked and stuff, and we had the schematic. He said, "Why don't we build one?" He said, "Why don't you get some parts, and he told me where to buy them. There's lots of surplus parts back then in stores. So I bought a chassis, and I bought the tubes and the sockets and all the stuff he told me to buy, and we built the amplifier.
And how did it work?
It worked really well. It was much better. I brought it home, and it was much better than my father's Lafayette amplifier. So we started using that, but it was pretty ugly. I mean, it was, you know, a box kind of.
Will there be a D'Agostino tube amplifier in the future?
Maybe no.
No.
I can't say that there would be. Yeah.
I also heard, is it a legend, that you built your first Krell amplifier, the KSA 100, on the proverbial kitchen table?
Actually, it was a coffee table, and I built it in New York at my apartment in Soho on a little homemade, somebody made it, coffee table, and I had test equipment from jobs that I had. So I had some test equipment, I had some parts, I had some power transistors, and I proceeded to design the first Class A amplifier that was part of the Krell amplifier. The first one I built was 35 watts because I hadn't thought of the idea of using fans. And it was 35 watts, and it was pretty big. And it was really a revelation to listen to. I brought it to a reviewer's house that we knew. It was his name was Peter Axel, and we went to his house, and he was listening to an amplifier called the Bedini. They claimed it was Class A, but he put my amplifier on, and he listened and he listened. He didn't say anything. Then he said, "I've never heard anything like that." He said, "That is amazing." So after he said that, I've got some reassurance that I was doing the right thing. So I decided to make a 100-watt version of it. Then I got the idea that I would use fans. And that was really a revelation for me because I've never thought about using them. But when you think about the efficiency of even a small amount of air moving over a heatsink constantly, creates a tremendous amount of cooling in a very small package. So I was able to make that 100 watts with very, very quiet fans. Well, you remember, you could hardly...
Yes, I had one. Ricardo sold me one KSA 100 with fans, whispering fans.
And you could hardly hear them run ever.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I remember that one day John Atkinson said, I was a virgin in audio until I heard the Krell driving a pair of scintillas, Apogee scintillas. And I felt exactly the same. It was a game changer.
Well, you know, I'd worked for a speaker company before I started Krell named Dayton Wright. And they were full-range electrostats with a great big transformer. And they were an electrostat with an unusual part where the electrodes were bare. They weren't insulated. And very high voltage, 25,000 volts.
Dangerous.
And they were enclosed in a gas envelope. They used a gas called sulfur hexafluoride, which is 5 times heavier than air. And it insulated the electrodes so they didn't arc. But the transformer to drive these electrostats was very big and very complicated. And it had a 90-degree phase shift and a 0.8 ohm load at
short, almost a short.
Yeah. And so we used to, the amplifiers sound great, but most solid state amplifiers would break when we played. As soon as you played it loud, they would break. So I learned, and we built an amplifier there that kind of, nothing like my amplifier circuit-wise, but I learned how to make an amplifier that could run into low impedances and not break. So when I built the first Krell amps, I used that technology because at the time there were quite a few speakers that were very low impedance. You remember the Ohm F?
Yes.
And the
especially the Apogee.
The Apogee was the one that got popular.
Yeah, very popular.
Yeah, and you know, I got accused. Oh, you built an amplifier especially for the amp sheets. I said no. This is exactly the same amplifier I built when I started. I didn't change anything to drive amp sheets. I always did this.
It drives apogees,
Yeah.
but it was not that the initial concept.
Right. Yeah.
I remember that Krell for many years was synonymous with high end.
Yes.
Yes, but then in 2008, you were fired from your own company.
Yes.
How did that happen? How did you cope with that?
We had a whole idea of expanding the product line, and I had a whole design platform, and in 2008, the banks had kind of a crisis, and they were calling back and lowering people's lines of credit. So we found ourselves in a great big development process with our money running out, even though we were selling okay.
So you needed
So I
investors.
needed investors. So I took in these minority investors that wanted, I mean, there was quite a few of them that wanted to be part. But this one group said, we want to be part, but we don't want to be involved in your business. We'd like to have, they wanted to buy 40% of the business. And my partner and I, Rondi, owned 60%. So we figured we were safe. But somewhere in the contract, it was written in that he had 3 seats on the board, and we had 2. So that was one thing. Number 2, in the contract, which was about that thick, he had in there that he could dismiss us at will. And but he was very like, oh, don't worry, everything's going to be the same for you. We're just going to come in with some money.
Sure.
You can continue development, and we'll touch bases once a month and talk. So we went along with it. But after about 3 weeks, he fired myself and my wife.
Rondi,
And then we had used all our money because all the lawyers said, oh, they can't do that. It's not legal for them to do that. But we spent almost $1 million in lawsuits, and nothing at all came of it.
So you decided to.
Yeah. So after about 6 months of spending all the money I had, I turned to my wife Petra and I said, you know, I don't know why we're fighting this. We spent all our money on it. We have 4 kids in college, and we need to do something. So I said, why don't we just start another company? I have this idea, and she helped me. We worked together at designing something that was really beautiful and looked nice, and just completely changed what I did at Krell.
Yes, I remember that because I was in Vegas in 2011 when you showcased the Momentum for the first time.
Yeah.
I was with my wife, as always, and she said, wow, the Krell heatsinks are gone. Those little Krell heatsinks are gone. And it's beautiful, and it's small. Of course, she couldn't know about the weight.
No. And that's a funny story in itself. I built the first 2 just with scraps of aluminum, and the circuit is something that I designed that had absolutely nothing and no resemblance to anything I ever did at Krell. Because I went around to some stores and I listened to systems that people had, and I realized that not all the products we built at Krell were musical. And some of the other products that I listened to were musical. They sounded musical and engaging. And I said to myself, I want to make something that's musical and engaging. My first amplifier, KSA 100, was musical and
Yes,
engaging.
it was.
And that was my goal then. And then after a while, I got to be like a person chasing new technologies and amplifiers. So I built a lot of different kinds of amplifiers at Krell. But when I got back to the Momentum, I wanted to make something back to my roots, back to music. And I spent untold hours designing that circuit to make it sound that way. But finally, it was a month before that CES show that you came to and you saw him for the first time.
And they were playing.
Yeah,
It's
so
not
yeah,
just
yeah.
static.
But this is
I have
so
the video.
yeah. So I took them. I finally got the copper pieces and the chassis and everything. I got 4 of them from this machine shop I used, and they sent them to us, and here I am putting them together and putting all new circuit boards and all the stuff I designed, and I put it all together, and I measured it, and everything worked fine, and they were laying, and then finally, the day before the show, I decided to put them completely
Inside the
together
box.
and get them ready to travel. I couldn't get them together easily because the coating on the heatsink was not, it was slightly thicker than the part that was fitting on it. So I couldn't get it in, but that took me a little while. I had to use carpenter clamps to snap the heat sinks in. So finally I did that, and I got them all ready, and there were 4 of them in a row. And I figured, okay, I'll carry them in the other room. And this is all in my house. So I'll carry them in the other room and I'll pack them. And when I picked up the first one, I go, oh my God, this is really heavy. They were 100 pounds, 100 plus pounds. So they were hard to pack. But that's the story. The first time we ever showed the amplifier, but it didn't play, was at the Top Audio in Italy.
Oh, I thought
Yeah,
it was
the
in
year before,
Vegas.
just before launch, because when was that? In June, May or June? Top Audio, July. When was that?
Usually it's in June, May, June,
Yeah,
June.
yeah. So there was a Top Audio, and I called Luca and I said, I have this. He said, great,
Luca
bring it.
Natali.
So he put it right in the corner in the hallway, and you went in, and there it sat, and a lot of people went up and touched it. There was nothing in it. The only thing that lit was the meter.
Just mock up.
Yeah, just a mock-up. It was actually the real case, but I didn't have anything ready to go in it yet.
No content.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. But I remember meeting Ken Kessler, and I showed him the picture of the amplifier, and we were having lunch at Top Audio, and I told him how much they were going to cost. He says, "Oh my God, nobody's going to want to buy those. He said they're very odd looking." And then he went to the show and he actually saw it. He came back and said, "Oh, those are great."
Yes, they're beautiful. And the name, Momentum, was also inspired by your wish to put something in motion that no one could stop.
Yes,
Also,
yes, that's exactly why I called it Momentum.
yes, I thought
Because
so.
I felt
Yes.
that being thrown out of my company that I started, and
Yeah,
then
it
not
was
having
hard.
it.
It was hard
Yeah.
to cope with. And now you have the Momentum MXV.
Yes.
Mass times velocity
Right, equals
momentum. That's very clever name.
Yeah.
That's a very clever name.
Yeah, thank you.
And I saw a video, I think yesterday, from Absolute Sounds, and Sting, you know, the singer,
Yeah,
has an MXV
and
amplifier.
integrated. Yeah. We didn't know anything about that, and I saw it the same time everybody else did on Facebook.
Now, about measurements, are they important to you, or is it more important to listen?
Measurements are baseline for me. I like to see. I mean, if you design a circuit and it's working, it's doing all the things it does electrically, and then you measure it and it doesn't look quite right. It's got some high distortion products. I'm not talking about anything normal. I mean, very high distortion, 1, 2, 3%, but it's working properly. Then you want to work on that a little bit so it gets down to a lower distortion range, and then you have the circuit working efficiently. But I'm not shooting for low distortion measurements, and I never have.
Or damping factor, or slew rate?
None of that matters to me. The only thing I care about is how they sound.
Mm-hmm.
And I use a lot of different technologies. I mean, you're listening to a whole system in the other room now, the Relentless amplifiers, Relentless preamp. There's no feedback in the whole system, but yet it does measure very low distortion.
How do you manage that? No feedback,
By
low
having
distortion?
really, really well-designed circuits. And they are relatively low distortion. I mean, they're not super low. They're in the 0.001 range, but it's pretty low. I mean, there's companies out there with 5 zeros and a 1. You know, I don't have anything like that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have anything like that.
Today you're unveiling the Relentless 800 here with a system which I think is the same system you have at home.
Exactly.
Do you also have the Varese stack?
I don't have the Varese, I have the Vivaldi, but I'm getting the Varese. I think it might be at my factory now. I'm going to put it in. Yeah, it's really an extraordinary product.
How do you balance the raw power with that wish to make them musical?
So that's why when I designed the Relentless, it took us a year to get it to work. And once it did, I was really worried. I built the first pair of 1600s, and you know they're close to 600 some pounds. And we put them, you know, we got my guys, I had 8 guys, and we brought them to my house and we put them in there. And the whole time I'm bringing them, I'm thinking, are they going to sound better than the Momentum? Because I had the Momentum in my living room. And I was really worried that they weren't. Now, although I had done everything I could circuit-wise to make them sound better. So when I actually heard it in my system at home, I was like super relieved. It was a wonderful expression. It really gives you goosebumps and brings tears to your eyes and plays some of the stuff you used to play, and you hear more of it. And when I did the Relentless preamp, the same kind of feeling, just reaching in and trying to get more information. I want to hear everything that's on my disc. I want to hear everything in it.
But not thrown at you.
Yeah, I want it to go all the way through. I want to hear every nuance. I want to hear every musician who's playing. And the more I refine this process, the more I'm hearing.
Some people say the Relentless preamp is the best in the world.
Well, I think so.
You think so?
I hope so.
I think that Relentless has something to do with your personality too. You are tenacious, relentless. You never give up.
That's
it's
exactly
not
it.
just the amplifier.
Right.
It's you there, like the Memento.
Yes, that is me. I'm in pursuit of making something better all the time.
For the first time, a trickle-down version was used to upgrade the flagship.
Yes.
The 800
Yeah.
was used to upgrade the 1600 to Epic status.
Yes. Yes. When we did the 800, there was some small circuit improvements we did. We did them for electrical reasons and not sound. But when we did it, we heard a sound difference, which pushed us to change immediately, change the 1600 to that technology, and we did. And that was and we offered that as an update to all of our customers. I think everybody's got an Epic now.
Oh, I see. You don't recall them to the factory?
Yeah, some people send them to the factory.
It's heavy.
Yeah, and you know, we sent a crew of guys to around the world that people had them, and we updated them for them.
Mm-hmm. Will there be in the future a Dan D'Agostino digital master systems?
No digital.
No digital.
Although we do make DACs and we make a streamer and our integrated amplifiers, but we're not going to make a standalone DAC. I mean, you know, the people like DCS and so on, they have been researching that for years and years. We don't want to be in that business, but I've been making amplifiers for over 40 years, so I feel like that's my expertise.
What about loudspeakers?
No loudspeakers. I have a love for loudspeakers because they're so hands-on. You know, it's like you're building something that actually makes the sound. But I had my stint with those at Krell. I don't want to do it with this company at all.
Will you be showing any new products in Munich as usual?
No, Munich is just what you see here. We're gonna, you know, fully display the pendulum, our small integrated.
Yeah, the pendulum.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah.
Integrated amplifier.
Yes.
I've already booked for a review.
Oh, nice. You'll like it.
But I've heard that you were working on a headphone amplifier.
I'm always working on a headphone amplifier. And I'll tell you why I haven't released one. 5 years ago, I started working on a headphone amplifier. And then I realized headphones are such a different thing. And I didn't want to use regular amplifier circuitry for them. So I developed a different circuit. And then I got distracted with some other things. And right now I have a perfect circuit for a headphone amp, but I haven't.
Is it Relentless or Memento?
It's something a little different.
Mm.
And I want to build it, but I'm a small company. I only can build so many products. And you know, we build everything in the U.S., so our labor rate is high. And to make a product that's really inexpensive is difficult for us.
Yeah.
Because a less expensive product oftentimes takes the same amount of labor that a large one does. But you can't charge enough for it to offset.
Sure.
Yeah.
I understand. You'll make a headphone for yourself.
I
A
don't listen
headphone
to
amplifier for yourself.
I have one that works, but I don't listen to headphones.
No.
No.
You like to feel the power.
I like the real feel.
And now, if I may, one last question. Do you think that the tariff war will reach the high-end markets?
It very well could. I mean, we buy almost everything in the United States, so that part won't affect us. Although if there's higher tariffs for our product going to different countries, which I can't imagine, our products are very high tariff in going into a lot of countries. But coming into the U.S., we
Now,
have almost
exporting
no.
to Europe will get more expensive with the reciprocal tariffs,
Yeah, if there is.
if there is.
Yeah.
Let's hope not. Well, then it's been a pleasure,
Thank you.
and I hope to see you in Munich again this
Yes,
year.
I'll be there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.